Have you ever had an angel visit you? I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I can tell you that angels are real. Today, I'm going to tell you the story how an angel visited my wife and I at the worst time of our lives many years ago. Hi, I'm Kaz. This is Cause and Effect. I'm hoping that the stories I tell and the things I talk about will inspire you to do good things in the community, have a little better life, and maybe just think about things a little bit. I'm going to encourage you to stick around till the end because when I tell you this very, very rarely told story, I'm going to tell you about a conversation that my wife and I had yesterday about this exact story. I've only told this story to a very few number of people over the years. This happened 29 years ago. And what was going on in our lives, we had a new baby boy named Cody. Cody was 8 months old, and he started having many seizures a day, up to 25 seizures a day. And this came on out of the blue. Perfectly normal birth. He was progressing well. He was beyond all standards for his age. And then one day, this all started. It was just a few days before Thanksgiving, all those years ago. We took him to the pediatrician immediately. The pediatrician recognized that Cody could possibly have a very rare condition. He sent us to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore right away. We went down there. Tests were run. Conversations were had. And Cody was determined, it was determined that Cody had a very rare condition that would eventually severely debilitate 90% of children who got this condition. It was a horrible time in our lives. Right before our first Thanksgiving and first Christmas with our new baby, we were devastated. The treatments for what he had at that time were unsavory, to say the least. There were a lot of tears shed. Family members were supportive, but sad. It was a very, very difficult time for us, a very difficult Christmas for us. And Cody was at the age where we wanted to get him baptized. The problem was with this condition and the medicine protocol that Cody was on, he could not be around a lot of people because he was susceptible to infection. And the drug at the time was a new drug. We had no choice but to put him on it. And, it was unpleasant. Let's just say that. My wife had to give him shots every day. It was terrible. So we wanted to get him baptized. Now, please understand, we are not overly religious people. I haven't been to church in many years, but I am a very spiritual man, and I do believe. So the doctors agreed to let us get him baptized under certain conditions, and we did the best we could to meet those conditions, but you know how it is. So anyway, we decided to get him baptized in the church where we got married. It was a relatively small church. By this time, everybody in our family and all of our friends knew what we were dealing with code, and the church was full that day. And now when I say the church was full, this was a small church. I'm guessing there were probably 200, 300, maybe a few more than that people there. And it was on a Sunday at a regular service, and at the end of the service, the baptism took place. When the baptism took place, the pastor held Cody up for the congregation to see, and she very quickly filled the congregation in on what was going on with Cody, that he had this terrible condition, it had come on suddenly, and that he was very sick, and that our families were very distraught. A lot of our family, both of our families were there, and a lot of our friends, and then the regular congregation. The pastor took Cody in her arms and she walked down the center aisle with the congregation on both sides. And she spoke about Cody and our family. Candidly, kindly. And as she returned to the front of the church, she encouraged everybody in the church to come up to greet us after the service and wish us well, offer prayers, and move along. So service was over. When Cody was baptized and they dumped the water over his head, he laughed so loud, so loud. And it took everybody by surprise a little bit because, most babies cry. But I had been washing Cody in the shower with me for months. I would hold him and kind of wash him up and let the water run over him, and he would laugh and I would laugh. And then Mom would come and get him and, dry him off and all that good stuff. So he laughed. Oh boy, did he laugh. And the service ended and people began to line up, and the pastor asked my wife and I to just hold Cody and stand at the front of the church. And I do not believe to this day, 29 years later, that one person that was in that church walked out before they came to meet us and offer us prayers and well wishes. But what happened was there were so many people and the church was so small that a line formed, starting with us, and it went all the way around the church. And it was long. And we were there for a while being greeted and talked to, and people were wonderful, including our families and friends and strangers. I always believe that kindness from a stranger is an amazing, amazing gift. And especially when you're going through something terrible. So as the line shortened slowly, I noticed a man at the very, very back of the line. He was the last person in line. And he was handicapped. He had crutches on both arms. He was a man of small stature, and his legs were kind of bent up. And it was very obvious to me that the effort it took for him to be in that line at all was great, because his physical disabilities were great. But he had this huge smile on his face, huge. And he wasn't talking to anybody. He was just there. And I couldn't take my eyes off of this man. We didn't know him. I'll just say that now. We did not know this man. And as the line got shorter and shorter, he just kept moving up with the line. And I was literally mesmerized by this gentleman because that smile never went away. And he never said a word to anybody that I saw. Nobody. And he kept moving forward, and I kept thinking, my goodness, who is this wonderful man with these severe disabilities that is so happy to just stand in this line to meet us and our son? And finally, the end of the line was in front of us with just a few people and this man. And when the last person before this man came up to us, this handicapped man just stood there smiling. And when that person walked away from us, that man stood there for a few moments, and he waited for that person that walked away to go through the door into the church hall. And then this man approached us. And I realized, even though he was handicapped, the effort for him to get to us was pretty small. It wasn't like it took everything he had. He moved gracefully. And he came to us. Sorry. And he stood there for just a few moments, still smiling. And he very calmly said this: "Your son is going to be okay." And he walked away. He just walked off. And it stunned me and my wife. And after a few seconds, I said to her, what in the world was that? And she was, as stunned as I was. And by this time, the man had gotten through that door. Now, to go into the hall. Now, understand, uh, this was only a few seconds from the time he said this to me till the time I went to go after him. The door was probably at least 60, 80 feet away. But that quick, that man was gone. So I thought he had gone through the door into the hall. So I rushed into the hall and he was not there. So I thought, there's no way he could have made it outside yet. But there was a double door not far into the hall. So I sprinted out that door and I looked at the parking lot. There's one parking lot there, pretty small. And that man was nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen. He was gone. He was just gone. And the time from the moment he said that to my wife and I until the moment I dashed out that door was no more than a minute. It probably was not a minute. And this man, this disabled man with crutches on both arms and twisted, bent up legs, was gone. Just gone. I looked for him for a few minutes, and it was apparent that he was gone. It was unbelievable. I couldn't even fathom what had just happened. And my wife and I talked about it later, and I said to her, I do believe we were visited by an angel today. Now, please understand that our son's prognosis at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore was devastating. They told us that over the coming months, he would continue to deteriorate rapidly and that he would spend his entire life nonverbal, severely handicapped, and living in a wheelchair. 29 years later, here we are, and my son is just a normal 29-year-old guy. He lives on his own. He likes all the stuff that young men like, motorcycles, cold beers, women. He's just a regular dude and a really good young guy. My wife and I are very proud of him. He's been through a lot in his life. So over the years, I've only told this story a few times to just very, very, very close friends. And why is that? Well, I can't say that I ever really thought about it much, but I think it may have been because, when you tell these kind of stories, sometimes people just think you're out there in the breeze a little bit. But the time is here to tell these kind of stories. And I wanted to share this because we are living in a time when our country and the world is in a lot of turmoil. And I want people to know there's always hope. There's always hope no matter what. Our days, those were our darkest days with our son. And that angel gave us hope. Now, my wife and I even have not talked about this story much over the years. Back then, when it first happened, we talked about it some, yeah. But over the years, not so much. But I'm going to tell you about a conversation my wife and I had just yesterday about this story. I've been considering doing this video about this angel for 2 or 3 weeks now. But after all these years, when something happens years ago in your life, as time goes on, sometimes details get distorted. Maybe your memory isn't as sharp about what happened. And maybe sometimes things don't even seem real. And what my trepidation with making this video was, this is going to sound crazy, I know, but did this really happen? Did it really happen? Because it just was so non-earthly. And my wife and I went out yesterday, and as we were driving to our destination last evening, I said to her, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something that happened a long time ago." And she said, "Okay." And I told her, I said, I want to bring up, I said, "Do you remember when we had Cody baptized, uh, in the church, that small church?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you remember the man that came to us at the end?" And she didn't say anything for a couple seconds. And I was like, gosh, maybe I dreamt it. Maybe it never happened. So I said, "Did that really happen? Or did I dream that?" And she looked at me, and without hesitation, she said, "It happened. Why are you questioning that?" And I told her, because after all these years, when I thought back on it, I just, it's a miracle, basically. Basically, it's a miracle. And I haven't told that story. I told it to one friend maybe a year ago. And I got the reaction I expected from that friend, which was positive. But I've probably only told this story to a handful of people over the years. And I'm not really, I probably should have told it more often when friends were in need or friends were going through tough times or whatever, but I haven't. There's really not a lot more to say about it, except for this. I know angels are real. My wife and I had a visit from one. I have no doubt about that. There'll be people to poo poo this uh, idea, and there will be others that will know exactly what I'm talking about. What I'm hoping is that you'll think about it. The world is full of wonder. Be open to these things and be aware of what's going on around you. I welcome your comments, stories, and anything else you have to say about this in the comments section. I'm Kaz. This is Cause and Effect. I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel to continue to hear great stories, positive stories about goodness and humanity. If you subscribe, you'll get a notification when I post something new. I'm posting about twice a week, every third day approximately. And I hope to see you in my subscriber list, and I hope to see you in my comments. Everybody have a great day. And I'm going to sign off with this like I do most times. Do something kind for somebody. Do something kind. I had a discussion with a friend last night about this exact topic, being kind. And he said this to me: "Do you know if you do something 8 times in a short period of time, it becomes a habit?" I wish more people would be kind 8 times in a row. And I agreed with him. Get your 8 times rolling. Do some kind things for folks. Everybody take care.